It is everyone's favorite segment, Soundbite. Please forget what Soundbite is. It is where Steve and I react to different post-game interviews, podcast clips, whatever the case may be. Someone says something that we want to take a listen to, we listen. Something came to our attention that Paul Pierce is apparently saying that Jayson Tatum and Celtics players throughout history have been underappreciated and underrated, and that Jayson Tatum deserves more love in the NBA. Not thrilled with this, so without getting too much into it, let's take a look.
Because he plays for Boston. It's just what it is. Every player, through Boston, even Larry Bird was underappreciated. You know what I'm saying? Because at one point, he was the best player in the league. But it was always Magic, even though Magic's my favorite player. It's just playing for Boston. Boston is the most hated franchise, hated team in all of sports, in all of basketball for sure. The guy has been to 6 conference finals, bro, in 8 years. In 8 years, 2 finals. If you match that up with KD's and all the stars, they didn't do that. Luka been to 1 finals, 2 conference finals. This dude been to 6 conference finals. He's 26 years old. Think about that. It's just, I don't know, maybe because he's not flamboyant and, he's private and he don't talk shit or, he's not demonstrative out there. I don't know.
So there you have it, folks. That is Paul Pierce saying something. He's out here talking. Steve and I we watched, I'll post the whole video that we looked at here. The whole 6-minute clip or whatever it is really worth your time. I highly recommend. But Steve, focusing on Paul Pierce, talking about Tatum and his underappreciation, how do you feel about this statement, and do you agree with Paul Pierce's analysis?
No, I do not agree with Paul Pierce's analysis. No, I do not whatsoever, Cam. Let me explain something to you. Over the course of Paul Pierce's retirement, Paul Pierce has felt the need to try and insert himself into the conversation of a lot of different things, whether it's who is the best of his era, or is he top whatever, top 20, top 25, whatever it is. Paul Pierce feels the need to elevate himself. So when Paul Pierce makes the statement of, well, it's because he plays in Boston, he is elevating himself by trying to elevate why Jayson Tatum is underappreciated. Let me be very clear with you, Paul Pierce. Larry Bird was not underappreciated. I have never in my life heard somebody say, oh, you know what? I think Larry Bird's one of the most underappreciated guys in NBA history. That's just not the case. And Jayson Tatum is appreciated for exactly what Jayson Tatum is. And every single time the lights have shone the brightest on him, Jaylen Brown becomes Batman. You can't have the notoriety that you see in a Luka or you saw in a prime KD when you disappear almost. You don't disappear, but you don't elevate. You stay the same or play worse. You stack his resume up against a lot of stars and take his name off of it. That's not all we look at. The eye test, there's intangibles that Jayson Tatum just simply does not have. Paul Pierce is just upset because Paul Pierce feels undervalued and underappreciated. So no matter what you ask somebody like Paul Pierce about when it comes to the Boston Celtics, he's always going to err on the side of, oh, they didn't appreciate none of us enough. No, that is not the case here, Cam. I specifically, I categorically and affirmatively disagree with everything that man just said.
Yeah, as soon as you put this on my radar and I watched it for the first time, my first thought was just that Paul Pierce he's trying to make up for his own inadequacies by saying, it's just how Boston players roll. It's just what happens. It's just so let's take it systematically. So saying Boston players, his first point, that Boston players are never appreciated, and that's why Tatum isn't appreciated. Bill Russell, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Bob Cousy, Sam Jones. I don't know. I think we all kind of appreciated those guys in their own right. They all kind of had their own things. Larry Bird was Listen, Larry Bird was so underappreciated that he got 3 straight MVPs. Nobody really cared about him. Nobody cared about Larry Bird so much that he won 9 straight first-team All-NBAs. No one even was thinking about Larry Bird back then. Larry Bird was so far in the back of the NBA world's minds that he had 8 years of being a top 3 MVP finish. Like, just nobody cared. Nobody talked about the guy ever. So, I mean, I get what Paul Pierce is saying. Now let's talk about being the most hated team in sports when we're talking about Boston. Do you have the case, Boston? I don't know. There's the Yankees, there's the Lakers, there's the Cowboys. The Chiefs have now been emerging. The Patriots had a run for a long time. I don't know. It's tough. Boston's up there, don't get me wrong, but the most hated sports team in American sports? Stop it. Then we want to talk about, he then wants to bring up Luka. Luka's doing all these things, getting all the talk, doesn't even have close to the resume that Jayson Tatum has. In the 2024 finals, which both players were a part of, Luka averaged 29, 9, and 6, where Tatum averaged 22, 8, and 7. And like you had said, we appreciate Tatum for exactly what Tatum is. A really good regular season player, has a lot of good numbers, and has a nice game. Can't take it away from him. Consistent top 5 NBA player. But when you go into the playoffs and you need a guy to win, or you want someone to build your future behind, I don't think you're taking Jayson Tatum. And so for Paul Pierce to show his own Boston bias and to just act like we are all just dissing Jayson Tatum because he's a Celtic is the most asinine thing I've ever seen.
I will say I have never liked Paul Pierce. I appreciate Paul Pierce for the years of that he was good in the NBA, because listen, Paul Pierce did have a good NBA career, but he needs to stop acting like he's not being appreciated, living vicariously through Jayson Tatum's lack of appreciation. Listen to the sound. I listen to the sound.